How's it going, everybody? My name is Daniel from Hazardous Entertainment, and welcome back to some more Minecraft Build the Earth, Winston Salem. In today's episode, we have what I believe is the last major landmark building we have for the downtown area, the R.J. Reynolds building. At one time, the tallest building here in the city, as well as the tallest building south of Baltimore, Maryland, this landmark was built in 1929 by architects Shreve and Lamb, and was most famously the inspiration for the larger Empire State Building in New York City that would be constructed soon after. As you can see here, I had already begun constructing the building about a year ago, but compared to how I usually shell buildings, yeah, this seems a bit out of place. I think I was still figuring out the best way to approach buildings like this, and had yet to figure out the exact nuance of the TPLL command, but we may have saved ourselves some work if I can find a way to repurpose this structure for today's project. I began by going through and checking the outline of the building, and yeah, I don't think there's much we're going to be able to salvage here. See, I used to use the BTE interactive map on their website to do my TPLLing, but I found out that Google Maps was a much better tool for accurate readings. I think that explains why the tower is actually skinnier than the measurements that I'm gathering today, because the BTE map isn't accounting for distortion like the Google Maps one does with its 3D geography. Since the new measurements were a block or two thicker on each side, I ended up just shelling the new outline as normal and trapping the old structure inside, where it shall remain imprisoned forever. I'm actually happy with these new measurements, since I always felt like the tower looked a bit too narrow and skinny compared to its neighboring towers. I shelled the next tier, where the only major difference were these little corner ledges that I had to carve out. I believe technically this layer of our building cake is inset by a foot or two, but if I tried pushing in by a whole block, it would make the corners less square, and it could lead to other problems down the road when it came to aligning windows. Next tier up, pretty self-explanatory, nothing new here. Now we come to the tippy top of the tower. I decided to fully start from scratch and demolish what I had previously built. I remapped the outline, or outlines rather, as this section is far more complicated than the previous layers. I pulled up the main part of this layer, leaving some of the other detailed parts as simple outlines for now. And now that I can see this thing fully put together, yeah, I am much happier with this newer, far thicker version of the building. Next, I went through and outlined the rest of the building. Yes, this is much more than just a simple tower. There's a complimentary office cube thing next door, and joining the two together is a ground floor structure that has far too many elevation changes than it has any right including. I started bringing up this back section that's still a part of the original building, only to realize I made a mistake when coordinating colors for the outlines. Like you've seen me do before, I like to use different colors to represent the varying roof heights so that shelling becomes much easier. I guess I missed this small cut-in at the back here, so I had to spend some time making sure all of that was accounted for. Now it was time for the big cubey fellow. I had already outlined this when I did the original outlines, and surprisingly the measurements were fairly accurate. I decided to demo the whole cube for the sake of double checking everything. This section of the building doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem since it's literally just a cube. It's the elementary foundation for all things Minecraft. Shelled up the midsection, shelled up the other part of the midsection, contemplated who in God's name would design such a horrific addition to such a beautiful historic building. Hey, you guys want to see me not learning my lesson? Oops. After all that shelling, wow, this building is really coming together nicely. I always find great joy in flying around a build after the shelling process. It just feels good to see something where only a few hours earlier there was nothing. Well, I guess in this case there was the sallow, bastardized version of what resides here, but we don't talk about that structure anymore. There's a new sheriff in town, Sheriff Building. Jesus Christ. I'll give you $5 if you can guess what comes next. If you said anything other than Windows, you are certified dumb stupid. Well, you know, unless this is your first video in the series, in which case, welcome. Did you know there are 8 other videos where we tackle buildings in the downtown area of Winston-Salem? Give those a watch after you're done here, and be sure to like this video and subscribe and turn on those bell notifications so that you can be updated every Saturday when a new video comes out. Now, I think the reason I did that original building with those odd vertical lines is because I was ensuring that the windows would be properly accounted for. I sort of worried that with the new measurements there may be some problem with the symmetry of each face of the building, and fortunately the window gods smiled down upon me again, as I had no real problems representing the window layout, aside from being one window short horizontally. But I mean, that's pretty much what happens with every building around here. It's nothing to get worked up over. Look at all of those windows. I swear that will never fail to make the happy chemicals in my brain go all sparky. Did you guys know I write for a living? Yeah, I'm a writer, and the words happy brain chemicals go sparky just came out of my brain. I took several days off from working on the RJR building, and when I came back, I began working on the cube. I realized almost immediately I was probably going to run into the issue that I had on the 1 West 4th building, where the lower larger windows didn't align properly with the upper smaller windows. Before I wasted my time redoing a bunch of work, I decided to be scientific about this and tested my hypothesis. Sure enough, I was correct. It seemed to be linked to having an even number of blocks on each face face of the building, so the simplest way to counter this would be by adding an additional block to each side, essentially making the cube thicker in both the X and Z axis. I went ahead and took this opportunity to ensure symmetry of the parallel faces so that I could easily copy and paste once I had a single side done. No sense doing things twice. I demoed the north and west faces of the cube and rebuilt them to account for the added block. I then went through and made parallel lines connecting the opposite windows. I did this because I noticed how much depth there was in this simple looking structure, and I knew as I began going deeper into the structure I would need to confirm that I was still following the proper rise run. This is a very common mistake you can see with a lot of BTE projects. Often smaller decorations like nooks and rooftop decorations will fail to match the established rise run. Now, sometimes it's better to do it this way, but if you can conform your smaller details to the proper rotation, trust me when I say that it will make your building look 1,000 times better in the end. I used different color wool to outline the different depths. From this picture you can see the outermost pillars followed by a sunken in layer of additional pillars, and then followed by windows, which are also sunken further. This part did cause me a bit of frustration as I felt compelled to keep checking the angles and make sure that everything was going to be symmetrical. Some call it obsessive, some call it an anxiety, call it whatever you like, I simply call it good construction. Time to get that color scheme in place. I used birch out on the main part of the cube and sandstone for the inset pillars, just to diversify a bit. I used a hefty layer of black stained glass followed by another heftier layer of black concrete. Many people wonder why I do 2 layers, and technically from afar you could get away with just using concrete, but I mainly do this to ensure that it will look good for people with or without shaders. If a player uses shaders and there's no layer of glass, the lighting won't give the windows a proper shine reflection. It's just a good extra detail to ensure that everyone has a good experience when exploring your builds, no matter how good their graphics card is. 1 face done, which technically means 2 faces are done. I fixed some lighting bugs and called it a day, as I had spent over 3 hours on a single facade and I had started questioning my purpose a bit. The next day I copied the facade to the opposite side of the building. I guess I forgot that this cube wasn't exactly a cube, it was more of a rectangular prism, because I got really excited about copying the facade to the other 2 sides before I realized that that wasn't gonna cut it. Time to literally repeat the exact same steps from yesterday. I'll spare you the details, but let's just say that I ran into the exact same frustrations, the exact same headaches, and the exact same desire for murder. Okay, finally all 4 sides are done. It was finally time to get back to the main tower. I turned the whole thing birch and decided on a good color for the window accents. I settled on gray concrete, though that might change in the future. I wanted a block with a bit more texture, but nothing with a decent texture had the right hue to it. A quick side done, and with the power of copy and paste, all 4 sides were quickly done as well. I made my way up to the second layer and decided it was a good time to gut this bad boy. The last remnants of the old building have been swept away. You may fire when ready. The main tower was effectively done, aside from windows in the top section, which I didn't really feel like getting around to yet. What? Sue me, I'll get around to it later. I just continued the same pattern across the rest of the original 1929 part of the building before adding windows. I decided to use glass panes again, as I did on the rebuild Winston Salem project. It did mean that I would have to inset the concrete layer by yet another block, but it really doesn't matter where your concrete layer goes, just as long as there is one. After getting that done, I added the roof on the back section and began working on this top spire. See, I told you I'd get around to it. Don't pressure me, it makes me nervous. It wasn't anything too spectacular, it was just a little tedious making sure that everything still appeared to have the proper geometry at this smaller scale. I didn't texture it yet as a way to tell myself to come back if I ever change my mind. I took this time to add the iconic flagpole with the American flag hoisted atop it. To do the American flag in BTE, most people use blue concrete or blue wool for the corner, as well as TNT for the red and white stripes. Something metaphor, there's probably a good joke in there somewhere, it just looks good for stripies. Now stand back in awe of Sheriff Building's glory. All hail Sheriff Building. Partner. I finally got around to the midsection. I slapped the roof on top and covered the whole thing in birchwood. I noticed a rather unnecessary elevation change in this far section of the roof, so of course we have to represent it. So the roof on this front part has a really intricate design. My first instinct was glazed terracotta, given its intricate tessellating pattern. Now this would work for a temporary roof, but I may still invite a really good pattern expert to redo it sometime in the future, as the current pattern is just a bit too small to look totally accurate. By the way, this process literally took an hour of work because of how finicky glazed terracotta can be. Just thought I'd mention my frustration with this specific building block. I took some days off and I hopped back on with Matt Cook. You guys know Matt, he's been on the channel before. He also does a lot of the music for this channel, including all the music you're hearing in the background right now. He had done a lot of building off screen, and together we added a lot of the final detail needed to make this building come together. We made sure that this sloped elevator shaft and roof detail were represented on the cube here. Look, I just want to say that this took a lot of time compared to the one sentence that I dedicated to it in the script. So we're just gonna sit here and let it be on screen for a little longer to justify how long that took. Look at it go. Okay, that's probably good. Now look, we could go on and on about every single detail that was added to this building, but I think I have a better idea. How about we do the final regular showcase, and then after that I take you on a quick tour of all the finished details up close. Sound good? Alright then, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I present the R.J. Reynolds building. Ain't she just a beauty? Well, everybody, yep, here it is, the finished product of the Reynolds Tower project. And I'm going to take you through some of these smaller details that Matt and I made here. Matt did a lot of the detailing around here, and it really helps bring everything together. Let's start over here. We've got a car here, which has got a nice little license plate on the front, pretty detailed. And the reason that it's here is because this area has a valet that runs along this street, which, if you've ever driven down Main Street before, you would know that those valet cars take up the entire right lane, no matter what day of the week it is. So we're probably gonna add a few more cars in here, just to really represent in the truest way we can. Even some small details here. The door, this whole area needs more detailing, and obviously the whole building's gonna need some more detailing eventually. But even this small thing like this C for the Cardinal Hotel, I think we also need to have a little side banner here that's gonna have the word Cardinal on it in some capacity. But yeah, I mean, this whole thing, it really comes together. It really got a nice no parking sign and this little front flower bed garden here. Over here we've got the Reynolds American Incorporated, I believe, their little logo here with their orange, green, and teal banners, as well as some American and North Carolina flags like we did over on the Nissan Tower. Let's go over here. We got some trees on the ground, and also the windows have been finally put in on the bottom floor here, so this is appropriate. I think this may sink down a little bit, but again, we can always come back and get some of those details in nicely. Matt even added in a little street sign here with some details like some crosswalk signs and peace sign. Is that a peace sign, Matt? I don't know what that's doing there, but you know how it is. Oh, up here we've got a really neat detail. Atop the building says Reynolds American, and the best way to represent that was with some banner art. So we have it here. Unfortunately, when you go far enough away from it, it does tend to disappear. Give it a second. There it goes. So I might have to put some things on the background there so that when you're far enough away from it, you can still get that idea of this orange and black detailing atop there. Up here on the roof, we've got some HVAC units and a weird yellow line that connects over to this section. Not really sure what that's about, but hey, if it's there, we gotta represent it, am I right? Nice little train tracks on top to give those ventilation units a bit of detail. Up here on the roof, which this roof definitely needs a lot more detail, but we've given it a bit of detail with this top eatery area with, I believe this is an oversized chessboard, and nice little seats here. I think there's a bunch of units here, and even an elevated section over here, but again, we'll come back and do that at a later date. More detailing needs to be done down there, but we went ahead and added yet another HVAC unit. Over here, we didn't talk about it much in the video, but we had to come in and add this little trim detailing to the roof here, and again, yeah, we'll still come in and get that tessellating pattern more detailed at a larger scale at some point. Lots more to do on this building, definitely. This building is, it's a bit scarce right now. I'd like it to be, hello building. I'd like it to be a bit more detailed with some nice, maybe some banners and other things, but I'm gonna bring some other people in and work on that a little more. But overall, yeah, it definitely stands out, and I wanted to come back and step back for a second. Oh yeah, and oops, render distance is too far down, but even that, I'm so happy to have this corner here so easily represented, because this is a very dense part of the downtown area, and it's only going to get more dense as we continue to sprawl out and add all the buildings in where they're necessary. And it's the first part of the downtown of Minecraft Winston that actually looks like a downtown. Like, I finally feel like this is home right here. So I know this video took a little bit longer than usual to get out, but that's only because I really wanted to make sure that we had done this building properly and I had enough time to make a video of this higher quality. These showcases, I don't want these to wane in quality because I want these to be bigger events once a month. For you guys. So yeah, look out every Saturday. Once again, picking up this coming Saturday, we're going to be having more Build the Earth coming out, some smaller builds until our next major project, which not even I know what that's going to be yet. So, but I guess as always, my name is Daniel and I will see you guys next time.